It was supposed to be a flight like any other, a smooth ride home after closing one of the most critical business negotiations of his career. A black CEO, dressed in a crisp suit, walked into first class with confidence and pride. But within minutes, everything shifted. A flight attendant whispered to another, a white passenger scowled, and suddenly he was told to leave his seat. Not for safety, not for procedure, but for comfort. What unfolded next would cost the airline $500 million. Watch until the end. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Marcus Williams wasn't just another passenger. He was one of the youngest black CEOs in the country, a self-made billionaire who had risen from nothing to lead a global tech empire. His journey had been built on resilience, hard work, and unshakable vision. That day, he boarded a flight after finalizing a $500 million partnership with the very airline he was now traveling with. For Marcus, this trip wasn't about luxury, it was routine. First class had become a practical necessity for his constant business travel. The cabin was calm, sunlight streaming through polished windows as Marcus placed his briefcase under the seat. He adjusted his watch, ready to review notes for the next day's investor meeting. Yet, beneath the calm surface, something darker was brewing. Unbeknownst to him, his presence in that premium cabin would soon ignite an incident that no amount of wealth or status could shield him from. Minutes after settling in, Marcus noticed the stiff glances. A white passenger sitting nearby shifted uncomfortably, frowning toward the flight attendant. Whispered words followed, their eyes darting back at him as though he didn't belong. Then came the approach. "Sir, I'm afraid there's been a seating issue," the attendant said, avoiding direct eye contact. Marcus raised an eyebrow, calmly producing his ticket, first class, fully confirmed. But the attendant's tone didn't waver. "We'll need you to move." Confusion gave way to disbelief. He asked why. The explanation was vague. A misunderstanding. Another passenger's comfort. But the meaning was clear. A white passenger wanted his seat, and the airline was willing to oblige. The tension thickened as nearby travelers watched, some in silence, some recording on their phones. Marcus, a man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals, was being treated as if his presence were an intrusion. Security was subtly called, ready to enforce the request. His mind raced. He had spent his life proving his worth in boardrooms and on global stages, yet here he was, reduced to nothing more than his skin color. Each second dragged, humiliation mounting. The attendant repeated the order. The white passenger smirked, with quiet satisfaction, as if reclaiming territory never meant for Marcus. The injustice was blatant, undeniable, and public. What Marcus did next would not only reclaim his dignity, but also send shockwaves through the entire airline industry. Marcus stood, not in defeat, but with an authority that silenced the cabin. His voice was steady, his gaze piercing as he handed over the ticket once more. Not to argue, but to make a point. Cameras captured every moment as he collected his belongings and walked out of first class without another word. But as he left, he wasn't just leaving a seat behind, he was leaving a decision that would ripple far beyond that cabin. Hours later, headlines would explode. Black CEO removed from first class despite a valid ticket. What no one knew yet was that Marcus Williams wasn't just a passenger, he was the man who held the pen to a $500 million contract with the very airline that humiliated him. The following week, Marcus walked into a boardroom filled with airline executives. They expected signatures, handshakes, and a partnership that would define their future. Instead, Marcus slid the unsigned contract across the table. His words were calm, but carried the weight of history. "If your first class isn't open to me, neither is my business." The deal was canceled, $500 million gone in an instant. The story went viral, sparking outrage across the globe. For Marcus, it wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity, about forcing accountability where polite silence had failed. And while the airline scrambled to repair its image, one question echoed louder than ever. How many more humiliations must happen before equality is more than just a promise? Where are you watching from? Take care.